Good evening, everyone. On behalf of Beyond Baroque Literary Arts Center, I'd like to welcome you all to the Wanda Coleman Theater and to the LA book launch of Bad Mexican, Bad American by Jose Hernandez Diaz. Please make some noise for Jose. My name is Jimmy Vega. I'm the Assistant Director of Beyond Baroque. I'd like to start by acknowledging Beyond Baroque's presence on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Tonga peoples. We acknowledge the wrong done to these peoples through settler colonialism, genocidal practices, and the violent disposition of their land. As an arts organization, we are committed to uplifting Indigenous communities, their stories, and cultures. For those who don't know, Beyond Baroque is Los Angeles' oldest literary arts center located here in Venice, California. Founded in 1968, first as an experimental literary magazine before reimagining itself and becoming the institution we know it as today. We are based out of the original Venice City Hall and help support writers and help cultivate new writing through our extensive program of writing workshops, readings, and performances. We offer a number of workshops online via Zoom, such as our free weekly Monday night fiction workshop facilitated by Raquel Baker, and our historic Wednesday night poetry workshop curated, currently facilitated by L.A. Johnson, who will be reading with us tonight. Yes. This year, we're also excited to host the 4th annual 30 and 30 workshop with poet Brendan Constantine, which will also occur online on the last Saturday, starting on the last Saturday of March and spilling into every Saturday of April to help us for National Poetry Month. We also have a number of paid in-person workshops. Currently, we're offering The Ode, a joyful or analytical ringer with Lori Bedikian, with more workshops added throughout the year. Aside from our workshops, we offer several readings throughout the year. Next week, we have a full slate of programs starting Thursday with Power in Our Names, The Urgency of Art, Activism, and Sisterhood, featuring scholar Dr. Tamika Cage Connolly, artist Vanessa German, and abolitionist Pratis Colors. We'll also host a dual reading on Friday night featuring Mitchell Unch and Tom Leitchis, who is here with us tonight. And on Saturday, we'll be paying a special memorial and celebration of life for our longstanding and former artist in residence, Bob Branneman. The current exhibit that's in the lobby and upstairs in our gallery is the last exhibit that Bob presented, I think. So please do engage with it tonight. We also offer memberships to Beyond Baroque. Purchasing a membership, donating to Beyond Baroque allows us to continue to offer this free programming, so please do inquire about how to join and become a member tonight. I want to give a big thanks to our staff, Quentin Ring, Ivan Salinas, Eric Alberg in the booth, Michelle Raphael, Genesis Perez, Simone Wesley. Thanks for all you do. They keep this place running and have made tonight possible. So we're going to start tonight with a reading from yours truly, and then we will get into the rest of the authors and help celebrate Jose. So this one's titled, No Fun, No Love. Bludgeon the cop in your head, mousetrap to the dome. Your dead won't hold you. Dos ex machina, come, crash into me. This isn't an axiom, cerebral car crash in silver streets. Someone asks if I really like the Dodgers, while you breastfeed the one that survived. It always comes back to Foucault and the proliferation of surveillance, you watching me, watching you, watching my own death on TV. So what if I'm no fun anymore? Define praxis or agape or gargantuan. Define my long list of confessions, my brief prayers, my sacrilege sacrifice. Yes, maybe your absence is a presence. Maybe my sleep-deprived, molcajete eyes are rummaging for honest sleep. Can't find a decent parking space on the east or the west side. Can't find the little halo tucked away in my conglomerate lethargy. On South Pasadena Ave, palms a-glittering, Santa Ana's blanket my private vigil. In a city of parking lot infrastructures, it isn't enough to try and find you. Yes, this is an apology, but in the Aristotelian sense. Flat cherry, Coke bad day hood lyric, a new American classic. Whisper it. On Great Salt Paloma, 108th Street, owls at dusk are pantoums perched on palms. They too forgive. All right, well, thanks folks. I am super excited to be able to read with Jose and everyone else tonight. Very humbled by the invitation. I remember reading your chapbook, Jose, and being super excited because you were mentioning freeways in your writing. And so that was something that I was leaning into in 2020, I think. And Jose, as some of you might know, is very into the prose poem. So I've been thinking about forms a lot. I've been thinking about them as containers to hold our words. So currently I'm working on a bit of a sonnet project a la Bernadette Meyer, just using 14 lines to see what I can do with it. So I'm going to read a few sonnets. These are fairly new. I couldn't find a prose poem because I don't have one that I like, so I'm going to offer these sonnets to you instead. This one's called Low Theory Sonnet. There's blood on the keys, dirt precipitation in my left iris, a chilling renunciation, low theory headache, wishing I was bed rotting with you too, with a sunrise of my camouflage mirror staring back at me. Grinning, I stab my eyes to meet phosphophines, not just today, but yesterday too. I tell you that when I feel the flow of energy which is not visible, like the whisper of a kiss or Monday morning stillness, there is always, no doubt, more humanity within the outside of a cage. One day I realized I was a cell on an Excel sheet. The taste of digital steel still lingers. Rainy Day Triple Sonic Crown, after Dorothy Chan. I'm somewhere stuck between gloom and an afterlife I didn't get to choose. Ash in my pocket, way glitter never leaves earth. Way microplastics tongue our lungs, way poems smear karmic countenances while you drive home. Resurgence is not, in fact, in the eye of the bed holder, but instead cupped within your blue cherry Nova Supreme yucca. How coming in the morning changes perspective towards the realm of enlightenment, only borderline respectfully. As I hear the city tremble in the apple pie gut of my gray California, someone in the neighborhood is more miserable at the day, won't appreciate shadow play with the Venetian blinds, won't ever hear the whisper of my pink trumpet like when celestial beings read me Byron and the Leviathan of my mind. They said my voice was marigold, what you think of it when you think of me. Don't lie, semblance of sound is only fleeting because it's miscommunicating with your body. Perhaps the ghosts lodged in the vault of my childhood home are only waiting to remember their recurring dream. When where they stare intensely at kitchen tile, dusky blue, way a song is only sad when you remember it. Way I see you seeing me. There are moments of light hidden behind digression, this being one of those moments. Sometimes, I remember reading about my death, waiting around in bedrot style to stumble upon a poem to save me. Way it wasn't this one or that one, but you, hidden underneath this sonnet. Something about portals and the transient whisper of liminality inside spaces where rain cannot exist, but instead is merely hypothesis. What do you call a city that it rains in gleaming sun? Are we like somewhere in Sacramento? Today, I saw a chrysalis and thought of you, waiting for my algorithm to digitize my own nostalgia, way I feel invisible in July Christmas. There is a tree inside a room somewhere in Los Angeles. Have you seen them? Behind the curtain of the fireworks sky lawn, behind the tongue-tied solo cup martini impression. Sucks being the coolest kid in the room, but when I entered the Fred Meyer for my taxes and a lobotomy, there was something about denial that I refused to chew. Yet everyone watched me lacing up my surveilled body inside fiberglass container, guilty of everything in gloom. Thanks, folks. So those were the sonnets. This next poem doesn't really need context, but some of the staff here has been wondering if I enjoy Taylor Swift music, if I'm a Swiftie at heart. So this one's for all of you. It's called New Romantic, or Can't You Smell the World Burning? I want to be unsubscribed within my digital vertigo of transient escalator rendezvous. When will my teeth rot out, if not during mirror shock or their fake-ass art phase? I'm on Compton Boulevard, and it feels good to know you're ready to dismantle heteronormative norms. When do we realize that our parents are not only the ghost light inside us, but smell after rain? A homeward frontier etched in cracked asphalt. There is an emptiness that scratches the God in my throat when I remember that I've once hurt you. I said there is an emptiness that scratches the God in my iris when I recall how much I've lost you. Los Angeles only feels this cute with you. New romantic, hood skyline, pigeon flutter, concrete, where else? Thanks, y'all. Two more for you tonight. This is a poem about my grandmother, my mamalicha. There's a mention of her in the poem. I lost her and my grandfather, my mom's dad, during COVID, the COVID-19 pandemic, 2 weeks apart. So I'm often very much thinking about them, and I haven't been able to write about them, but I want to, and this makes a mention to her. This one's called, the title of the poem is the first line of the poem, so I'm just gonna get into it. I'm no longer a list of attachments, a sensory amalgamation as combustion neurosis. I am my mother's quiet prayer, transient flicker, brief as causality, hazy amber videotape hue, unexcavated memory. I am the formal cause of an unfound poem, weightless and yearning in Rambodian solitude. Now that I am in love and no longer a poet, instead hummingbirds singing all of my grandmother's secrets, one whose ashes are kept in non-cobweb ancient church archival box revolution. I keep thinking about who you'd be if I'd never left, how the desert can't hold you or how all flowers beg for rain. I keep reading in the dark to hide my lizard brain in the form of licking my own wounds. If pain is everything, my tongue becomes my sacrificial ofrenda, yearning to meet you within golden hum. There is a street light lost inside all of us. How else could we radiate past midnight? If you've ever been followed inside fluorescent aisles of a convenience store, raise your hand and repeat after me. When my grandmother died, I lost a lot of everything, but not just anything. One who'd pray for me, rushing towards slate streets. I can hear her voice when I focus on the action of photosynthesis, or in the liminality of sleep lids chasing moon cycles, elegiac and round and cylindrical, in a way that carries. How else did I ever fall asleep without you holding my hand? And now that I am in love and no longer a poet, the ending is refrain without rhyme. Can you hear it? Thanks, y'all. This last poem was written during the 2020 uprising after George Floyd's death. It is Black History Month, and according to last night's event, it is Black History Millennium. So we are always celebrating Black artists and cultures and their stories. So the only other thing that you need to know about this particular poem is that the title of the poem is a remix of Walt Whitman's line, "Song of the Bleeding Throat." It's from the poem When Lilacs Last in the Dooryard Bloomed, part of his Leaves of Grass edits. And there is a line in here. The line is, "We're choking on words like pig." And that's a borrowed lyric from LA-based hardcore band Dangers. The lyric is borrowed from their title track, Loose Cigarettes, and the song was written right after the death of Eric Garner. So this one goes out to George Floyd and all who we've lost in the process. It's titled Song of Bleeding Throats. Los Angeles is on fire. Scorched streets toned in Technicolor and rancid cempasúchil ash. Someone lights a cop car in flames. Tear gas kisses my cornea, tickles my throat like razor wire, rattling my lungs, and someone baptizes me in cool milk. My face drips. Someone punches a cop and I make a wish. Hands outstretched, open palms, searching for God or loose cigarettes. I can't breathe on Fairfax and 3rd. I can't breathe with a fist down my throat. I can't breathe with my face kissing pavement. I can't breathe in sleeper holes. I can't breathe in tobacco-stained roads. I can't breathe with a baton licking my spine. I can't breathe with pepper spray coloring my iris. I can't breathe when we're choking on words like pig. I can't breathe when rubber bullets hemorrhage my prefrontal lobe. I can't breathe when I'm too busy coughing up a lung. I can't breathe when my face is buried in tierra. I can't breathe cuando me amarran la lengua. I can't breathe, I can't breathe, I can't breathe. Carbon monoxide tints the air green and someone holds an ACAB sign. I can smell burnt fingertips reaching towards lit canisters. I can't breathe and it ain't the fucking face mask. Someone says the dumpsters in Santa Monica are a lot nicer than the ones in Venice. The 405, southbound, slack and slightly overcast. Green freeway signs scribbled in post-semantics. I keep driving 95 on the 405 before I reach inside my epidural hematoma just to taste the fever of my city persimmon in afterglow. I can't breathe in Los Angeles. My breath arrested, my voice cyanotic. Thank you. All right, let's move on to the reading. We have a slate of really wonderful readers tonight, two of which have facilitated the Wednesday night workshop. So that's really cool to have y'all be in the space with us. Next up is L.A. Johnson, the author of the chapbook Little Climates. She holds an MFA from Columbia University and a PhD from the University of Southern California, where she is currently a Mellon Humanities and University of the Future postdoctoral fellow. She's the winner of the 2022 Mississippi Review Poetry Prize, the 2022 Greensboro Review Poetry Prize, and the 2021 Arts and Letters Rumi Poetry Prize. And her poems appear in The Atlantic, Poetry Magazine, and The Slowdown. She's received support from her writing from Vermont Studio Center, Community of Writers, Bread Loaf Writers Conference, Swanee Writers Conference, and elsewhere. Please welcome our current Wednesday night workshop facilitator, L.A. Johnson.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for the beautiful introduction, Jimmy, and your poems. It was amazing to hear them, and congratulations, Jose. It's very bright and very moodlit in here, so forgive me if I'm not looking, I don't know what's happening in here. But congratulations on your book and all of your others. I'm so happy for you, and I am so excited to read with everyone tonight. And thank you, as always, to Beyond Baroque. I'm delighted to be leading the Wednesday night workshop and to have some people from the workshop here tonight, which is really fun to be in community together in person. So I'll just read a couple of poems from my chapbook, and then I'll read some new poems. Night Passage. Mornings I used to see in the bent grass the shape of a bed where one deer nestled down at night. For a year, I lived beside only an absence, the ghostly depression of animal sleep. Spring and his antlers lost tufts of fur, while my teeth tried to grow in straight, wet monuments to precision. After the error of alkaline blood, I kept myself behind locked doors and learned to mummify my body with blankets, preparing for the salt diet. Later still, I saw the bed of the buck thinning, witchgrass finally rising after so many months of tamping down, his disappearance as unexplained as his arrival, while my own presence became more silhouette than solid. Between him and me, a sightless understanding that existence could be willed away at a whim by rain or high wind. Hush. In these green hills, there's no longer time for sleeping, for condolence notes. Like a face, the sky looks back with longing. Another life holding ice in my mouth, another life leaving my body out to be burned by the sun. I had a lover once with the eyes of a monster, blue as a flood. I felt the water lapping at my door. I had a horse once with the buck and gallop of a stallion that I led carefully to graze on the cliffs above the Pacific. Twilight arrives and I tremble. Doubt sleeps among the stars, tucked neatly into rows of twin beds. This evening could go on forever, like the plastic cord of a telephone I used to wind around my wrist as I listened to your voice, a miracle echoing out of the dark. Tonight, I am witness to misshapen things, the coast live oak growing coiled in our yard. When the night decides, I won't see them anymore, shielded by ghosts and shadow. Only then do I want to stay close to you, like animals in a wet field, huddling a while, saying each other's names. And I'll read some new poems. I thought, thinking about the vibes for tonight, and I was thinking some more LA-ish poems. So this first one is called Edendale. Laundry whirls in the machine while homes burn from brush fire and smoke shades the hillside into darkness. A dog I haven't seen barks in the neighbor's apartment until evening, when the sun sets unseen behind smog and ash, and the dog switches to terrible howling, round vowels burning through walls, louder and louder until they seem to lose their center, until someone could mistake them for laughter, maybe. If you could go back in time, would you want to? My ex-lover asked me once in a dream while he held a tumbler of milk that clicked with ice cubes. Someone told me once that the Pacific is flooded with gold, floating out there impossible to extract from the seawater, glimmering without touch. Unlike the Los Angeles road map that finds me lonely at the flea market. The map is evidence of places that I know no longer exist. The paper greased by fingers and torn, an address that is meaningless to me, circled carelessly in green ink. If I drove there to 1081 Edendale Drive, would the house I imagine still stand? A single-story rancher, the color of a linen dress? Or would I find only vacant lot, a past lost to foreclosure, walls pocked and split by stones, the empty home of a family who once left in such a rush they cruelly discarded their starving, barking dog? I have abandoned things. Broken plates, stained clothes, gifts I never wanted, the voicemail from him I listened to over and over, a loop of rage and grilled chicken that I repeated each day until it became another language, until I could listen no more. And I will keep abandoning. Watch how easily I pull out my own hair from the brush, strands brittle and blonde in this light. How softly this old hair falls outside my window, catches the breeze a little, and I don't know where it will go except away from me, drifting towards a dove's nest or sewer opening or the side of the freeway piled up with the trash. At every window in this city, people linger, thinking of minutes they want to think of no longer, and each face blazes with the dream of abandoned, falling things. In my homage to Jose, I am reading an ode poem. This is my only ode that I have ever written, so I hope to learn. This is another Los Angeles poem. It's an ode to the Rowena Reservoir, which is on the other side of the city. Ode to the Rowena Reservoir. Unrequited lover, I didn't want to desire your palm tree orchard or your wild flower garden concealed behind wrought iron. Winters you dreamed from the deep shade. In the heat of July, I call to you through car windows, whisper your name at nightfall as the streetlights flicker on and off. All the nerves ache in me for your lush springs, to follow you down your private palm drive. I want to bring wine and fire, to swim naked in the lake from which the whole city drinks. I'd skinny dip and laugh beneath soft echoes of clouds. I'd touch you in your perfect loneliness, use my fingers to speak within your clear pools. It would be enough to let the day float away, let time pass in faithful speechlessness. I bathe in the chill. Under a placid exterior, you quake with the weight of 10 million gallons. I don't know if a paradise for one is a paradise at all. Twin bed, bad things, eggs enough for one. A life so private, there's no one to overhear my laughter, to see me sleeping empty-headed. A life so private, it would take me to the grave. In the shadows, I wait for summer poppies to sleepily shut, for tin music of a slamming car door, for the coyotes to slink in through the gaps in the gate, howling, dragging their furred closeness. What is it that makes us want to hurt each other? I'll just read two more poems, switching gears a little bit. These next two poems are about my father, who passed away about 4 years ago. And yeah, there's a lot of questions in them, I was realizing as I put this together, so you'll hear it. Downriver. Is there a way back? Language once as slick as the tongue in my mouth, now a spotted deer, pacing and pawing a silvered stream, fetlocks flecked in dirt, splitting deep grooves into the soil. In the chestnut grove, the dead sleep soundless in the earth. I stand above them, looking into a western light. I stand as if the day doesn't touch me, all the shadows hidden among wildflower, my hair heavy across my back. In the chestnut grove, my father is buried. Above him, opaque leaves ache and sway, wind a word music only they can hear. When the western light is gone, my dress lifts away from me like a kind of worship. A measure of me has been buried here too. The part of me that went missing that night in December. That night I found there was one less heart beating, and my blood refused, rushed so fast it blurred and blacked my brain until I came to again, having lost an hour, lost a part of me that was never revived elsewhere. This dark sliver of me I listen for, garbled voice high above his grave, a shiver invisible in the leaves. I hear the words of a gone life, a father alive, but it is me who whispers over and over. And again, thank you so much for having me tonight here at Beyond Baroque. I don't have that many surreal poems, but I was trying to, again, get closer as another homage to Jose, and so I have my last poem, Invented Landscape. It is the world as I've never seen it. The sky, a kaleidoscope of orange blossoms, and seagulls that drift soft as dandelions, and snow that falls, but then changes to glossy clouds, thin as cotton, that float in gentle breeze, where the glow from a high balcony becomes a portal to an orchard, untouched by human hands, where every tree blooms with tufts of ivory, the rain descending with low music as the earth cools and smells of soap. A kite in the sky loops higher and higher in the wind until the kite is a circle with no beginning, a day that never ends in night, and a child glimpses wonder beneath its salt air sail, holding all mystery on a string. This is the world as I've never seen it. I've woken in dark rooms. I've toiled days facing an empty wall. I want to write the world gorgeous enough for my father to return to it. A world where oceans meet. A world of lands never split with fire. Where you can tell the time by the stars or the sun or the dimming minutes themselves, the way they feel light in your hands. Thank you.
One more time, folks, for L.A. Johnson. Give it up. We love having you as our facilitator, so thank you, and thank you for being here with us. Okay, next up. Jose Oseguera's writing has been featured or is forthcoming in Sonora Review, Shataka, and Catamaran. His work has also won the Nancy Dew Taylor Award and placed second in the 2020 Hall Prize contest. He's the author of the poetry collection, The Milk of Your Blood, as well as And This House is Only a Nest, forthcoming this year. Please welcome Jose Oseguera.
Thank you, Jimmy. Thank you, Beyond Baroque. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Jose, for inviting me to be part of your special day. I have a couple poems from my new collection. It's not the one that's here, but it's the one that's coming out in about a month. And funny enough, they're both about sports, so there's two sports metaphors. Here's the first one. Hats off to Marcelino Bernal. We jumped out of our seats as high as our Nike Airs allowed us and yelled, "Viva Mexico," in spite of being reprimanded by our teacher not to speak Spanish, even though it was technically recess. El pinche Indio Bernal scored a hell of a goal on those fancy, cocky-ass Italians. Kept running through my head, neck to neck with my adrenaline, as the two Italian defenders who couldn't get there in time to prevent his shot. Marcelino's mullets flap on the nape of his neck like black crested caracara feathers. His white jersey thrashed loosely under his arms as eagle's wings. Our hero, our cock in the fight. I was sure that had his teammates not tackled him, Bernal would have flown out of Robert F. Kennedy Memorial Stadium into the blue skies of Washington, D.C., over the Lincoln Memorial, and into heaven like Elijah. The English-speaking commentators were speechless, jaw-dropped as they saw a prince from our tribe be marvelous, divine, so quiet that our teacher was afraid that all of our jumping around had somehow broken the television. They couldn't describe what they had seen: a flyover country scaling Olympus and landing a jab on Zeus himself. Had these journalists found it worthwhile to research Marcelino's stats, butchering his name as if reading it for the first time, they would have known that 5'11" man of bronze skin from Tepic, Nayarit, had a rocket launcher of a right leg. As dumbfounded as they were, they deemed the phenomenon an error on the part of the Italians, a fortunate rebound, an act of voodoo chichimeca rather than a feat of athletic ingenuity. Their analytical minds couldn't understand what 3 bean and tortilla fed 4th graders knew in their hearts, something their aunts and uncles never allowed them to forget. Nobody ever gives nothing to people like us. That's why we need to celebrate all the small victories, because who knows if we'll ever make it big. We crossed our fingers, held our breaths, and prayed a Hail Mary for every minute of play until we turned blue all over. We were prepared to die on the field with the Mexican team. The school bell rang, our teacher switched off the TV and flicked on the lights. The sweaty chatter and sneaker screeches of our classmates flooded the room. We rubbed our eyes, adjusting to the incandescence, and wiping tears of joy for the men in whose faces we saw our own. We knew that after the goal, Mexico would probably get trampled on the field, because there were still 30 minutes left of the game. But maybe, just maybe, a goddamn sumbitch Indio would get away for once with more than he could ever dream of. Thank you. This next one is an ode, so right in line, and it's also about the Dodgers. So we're all getting connected here, and it's a little bit surrealist too. So here goes. Ode to the Dodgers. Ode to Bruce Lee. Empty your mind. Be formless, shapeless like water. Now you put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. Now, water can flow or it can crash. Be water. Bruce Lee. 1. When the lineup of prisoners first filed into the visiting room, I picked out Dad by the beard, patchy like the El Carrizo baseball fields in San Fernando. The last time I saw him was 10 years before, on the night he was betrayed by undercover cops posing as junkies. They caught him in a rundown right as he was planning to steal himself home. Wow, mijo. You look so big, he said, after he hugged me for a prolonged period of time. I almost didn't recognize you. 2. I could still remember the undercover officers that sat in the living room with my siblings and me as the lead investigator debriefed Mom in one of the bedrooms. So, how old are you? One of the cops asked, the one that reminded me of Dodgers first baseman Eric Karros. 12, I said, after I realized my brother and sister weren't going to interrupt their carpet gazing. He said, and crossed his arms, partially embracing his belly. He didn't seem interested in questioning me any further, giving Dad's already full count. 3 kids, 2 strikes on his record, and no outs this time around. 3. The narcs gave Mom a Ziploc bag large enough to fit everything Dad had been wearing that night. His clothes, brown leather shoes, and latex gloves. Though they chafed my inner thighs, I wore his boxers to school the following week and for months thereafter. White, cratered with moth holes, patterned with the New York Met mascot, Mr. Met. 4. I felt a phantom itch near my knees as Dad and I took a seat at a chair and table bolted to the ground, ensuring the inmates' safety in the event of a bench-clearing brawl. Remember when we used to watch Kung Fu movies, he said? I was thinking about that time you kicked a tostada out of your brother's hand, he smirked. Yeah, that was pretty badass. I smiled at the memory. The blow had been so swift and well placed that the petrified tortilla flew across the kitchen, out of my brother's hand, who continued to hold the outline of a disc for seconds afterward, landing intact in an ajar drawer. You remember what he said that day? Who? My brother, I said? No, Bruce Lee, in that scene where he smacks his student for focusing on his finger and not on what his finger was pointing to, the moon. 5. When the officers left, Mom stayed in her room for what felt like months. When she came out, her lips were pursed with her fists at her waist, just as Jesus when he was tasked to not let the cup pass from him, or Lee to fight his way up a 5-story pagoda filled with martial arts masters, or the Mets to clad themselves with blue and orange. She understood that she'd have to be our leadoff man and cleanup hitter, our coach and umpire. She sat down beside us and told us Dad wouldn't be around for at least 12 years. A crooked number for a crooked man. That night, I dreamt Dad and I were spirits swimming in a river of colostrum inside of Mom's body, one that satiated our sins, but not our thirst to remember. 6. One of the inmates was celebrating his birthday, so they gave us all a slice of cake and coffee with 2% milk. After taking the cup, Dad gave thanks and said, "You know, I'm glad you took after me. In looks, I mean. Your mom's brothers are all short." And as he separated the frosting from the sponge, the distinction I had made between his role as a parent and that of my buddy became as insignificant as the distance between Brooklyn and Queens. "Well," Dad said, pausing to lick the brown frosting from the plate, "she did breastfeed you as a baby, so I guess that helped." 7. Dad's ejection from our home marked the end of a losing season, one filled with name-calling and bad calls, slides and bruises from the battery he'd formed with Mom. Before she got up from the couch, she reached out my hand to touch my hand. I felt a shock as our fingers made contact, currents of her blood and his short-circuiting my veins. And I suddenly felt it would have been better for me to have dissolved into her amniotic fluid if I hadn't been born. 8. I left the prison as I once had Dodger Stadium after a 12-inning playoff loss, trying to rid myself of something that was drowning me from within. I remember walking into a sea of people flooding every stairwell, pathway, and sidewalk, where I no longer felt like a person, but a drop. I stopped crashing into people trying to find an exit and allowed myself to be borne by the flow. I wanted to be nothing, to be water. Thank you.
Jose Oseguera, give it up, folks. Make some more noise. All right. Up next, Rooja Mohassessy is an Iranian-born poet and educator. She is a MacDowell Fellow and an MFA graduate of Pacific University, Oregon. Her debut collection, When Your Sky Runs Into Mine, was the winner of the 22nd Annual Elixir Poetry Award. Her poems and reviews have appeared in Narrative Magazine, Poet Lore, Rhino Poetry, Southern Humanities Review, Calyx Journal, Ninth Letter, Cream City Review, the Ardrey Journal, New Letters, the Florida Review, Poetry Northwest, The Pinch, The Rumpus, The Journal, and elsewhere. Please, a warm welcome to Rooja Mohassessy.
Thank you, Jimmy, and thank you to Beyond Baroque, although I kind of always think Jimmy is Beyond Baroque somehow. Thank you for having us, and it's wonderful to be here and read with Jose and all of you, and also to celebrate Jose's book. I am so in awe of Jose's vision, his surrealist vision, and of the prose poems especially, and I'm so looking forward to this new collection. And yeah, I mean, it's hard to keep up with Jose, of course. We have to just, he's got a new book coming out every 3 months or something, it feels like. So I'm looking forward to this one. I'm going to start with a new poem, and then I'm going to read a couple from my collection that came out last year. Impunity. Little smiles that milk teeth shape, little smiles that depart to no return. Maya Abu al-Hayat. In this interrupted hour, the sky wears her many faces, one pale with phosphorus, another gray with pulverized rubble, and someone has lost count of numbers of orphans with open wounds and those who cannot point to where, when, who is caught at what depth. Under each heap, an indefinite number lost to a household. There is much that cannot be ascertained for certain. The living cannot be helped onto their feet. Their faces lack for conviction. Where yesterday a dirt road led them somewhere, helplessness now leads to the brink, a briny runoff, a parched orchard to the border, fortified with fear. See the mounting pile of sin. A father points to a verse in the Quran. He wants to know if his child is deserving of the sea view of peace, and will it drop tomorrow from the veils of the morning. So I'm going to read 3 more poems. This one is called Believers, and it's dedicated to my mom, who is deaf-mute. Believers. When he said they're deaf, dumb, and blind, so they will not return, God meant, had we died in her arms, my mother would have carried on spoon-feeding until certain we were safely enshrined, our halos on exhibit. Nor did she turn to salt. Even now she looks back, though unsure of what exactly was looted, the year the milk of the rubber tree on the back porch dried up. She couldn't hear, but they carried away the grating rattle of her pots, giggles that died at dinner, hunger stayed and reached with our thin, manacled mouths for rationed wafers that perched higher on the shelf where nothing wished to be disturbed. It wasn't like an earthquake. My mother couldn't hear the night sky rip into starry strips. She felt the warheads rumble, listened with her feet. She kept flat under the table, with 2 gold bangles chiming on each of our wrists and a double strand of jasmine wilting on our chests. My mother had meant to say we were believers, though she had never read the Quran nor heard the azan. This one is kind of a bit of a rant. I have a couple of those sort of poems in here. This is called Mrs. Farahmand and Mrs. Henderson Share Drinks on the Eve of War. The moment you enter, I stretch across my moist lips a taut and glossy smile, transparent as saran wrap, preserving us at a good arm's length, where you lean into my island, your unbuttoned blouse breathing your favorite perfume wafting over. I realize it's mere temporary mercy, yet it saves us, believe me, my strange charade, from spoiling the perfectly blameless afternoon, our cultural incompetence betraying us both with such topics as the Red Sox, Axl Rose and how well he has aged, the toughness of sanctions on Iran, which member of the female body is left bare in the Quran, and whatever happened to my mother and her tongue. A long list of taboo topics, each petering out at the embarrassed dead end, those small amount of ill at ease we can both tolerate, like a low-grade fever. From the corner graciously beams my professional Cuisinart with continuous feedhead, my gambit for reviving the dead air. The kitchen, too, I've aired. Sumac subdued, cardamom and clove, saffron sealed in vials, lest they seep and clash with our summer menu of baby kale and nasturtium. Thin sole fillets popped up on bouncy beds of greens. Yet a few cocktails in, we predictably thaw. In our Riviera high chairs, I lean into the counter and confess how long it's been since sex. You advise how best to ease into the full dose of black cohosh now that menopause has hit. Then after a boozy tiramisu we sop up with a shared spoon, I usher you, Mai Tai in hand, onto the twilit patio where a phalanx of ghosts conjured from 500 BC streaks crimson the California sky. The Athenian dead, Darius the Great, Alexander, Persian warriors, their armors cast aside, stand in line with those who loved us. My uncles who died in exile, their wives alone in hospice. You're dead too, whoever they be. Stand shoulder to shoulder with mine, all on the same defeated side. Glosses worn off, our smiles almost clear the air now of centuries of mistrust. We've reassured the afternoon with nods of understanding, dreamt each other harmless, consoled with dabs of moisturized touches. And here we sit in the glow of the tired sun, silently sipping our final drinks. As our countries brace for war, my border of white roses sways before us like a flag of truce. Your gold highlights toy with the last light. My bone white roots call for a touch-up, and I think to myself, look how well we managed against such heavy odds and shed no blood. Thank you. And this last one is from my grandmother. I used to fast with, or I used to beg to fast with her when I was a child. Children are not allowed to fast. And this is in her memory. Ramazan in Tajrish, for Madar. You nudged me with a whisper to rise an hour before Azan from under the thick of dove feathers, warm with your love for God and me, the musty grandchild who had rushed the weekdays to arrive at you, and you were already more in love and old like walnut trees. Little did I understand of the hours past the shuffle of shadows, why they felt solicitous, safe only at your home like uncles who dropped their manliness at your door, removed their shoes, and stooped through the narrow frame to greet you. Whether I hurried out of your bed to meet God, at my paisley prayer mat, the cotton janamaz you hemmed by hand, or to putter after you out and into sunlit rooms was moot. Little did I understand of the prayer in your gate. For the faint, dehydrated child, the afternoon hours ran from the setting sun, while your white chador shifted faithfully about you, sprinkled with flowers, differential with the remaining minutes. Though too young to fast, even then I knew when I pestered you with a 10-year-old's dogged demands to rouse me for Sahari, the day-old lavash we tore like a promise between us, buttered at near dawn, and to keep our secret from Mama and Baba. I knew in your low cloud voice that would nudge my sleeping cheek only once, did you think I would not hear you? In the reluctance of it lodged the caress of those childhood days. Thank you.
One more time, folks, give it up for Rooja Mohassessy. So we didn't plan it, but all poems kind of led us to Jose, which is great. And I'm super excited to be here to help launch Jose's new book. It officially doesn't come out till March something. Yeah, so we do have copies in the bookstore. Please purchase one. I don't have one to show you, but the cover is great and a great title, Bad Mexican, Bad American. So without further ado, Jose Hernandez Diaz is a 2017 NEA Poetry Fellow. He is the author of The Fire Eater, Bad Mexican, Bad American, and The Parachutist, which will come out next year. He teaches generative workshops for Hugo House, Lighthouse Writers Workshops, the Writers Center, Beyond Baroque, and elsewhere. Additionally, he serves as a poetry mentor in the Audra Journal Summer Mentorship Program. We have a lot of love here for Jose's work, so please welcome Jose Hernandez Diaz.
No, thank you everybody for being here. It's a dream come true to have this book come out. It was a long wait, maybe 5 years, where The Parachutist was my first collection, first manuscript. And I was, waiting, submitting finalists a few times. And And in that process, I learned how to organize the manuscript. And so it's just great to finally have it here, debuting next year. Thank you, everybody. Thank you to Beyond Baroque, to Jimmy, to all the staff. Shout out to the readers. That was just an amazing lineup. And to hear the readings live in person is just it's just a dream come true to read with all of you and share this night, and go get their books and look out for their work and follow them on social media, and hopefully we can read, for many more years here. So it's Beyond Baroque, my favorite place. I've always mentioned that when I read. I was the Wednesday night facilitator for maybe a year, almost a year, it felt like. And that's where I learned sort of the ropes with workshops in terms of feedback workshops. And so for my first poem that I'm going to read, it's the first poem in the collection. And the first section is actually, I always shout out to Lisa Ampleman, poetry editor for Acre Books. And she organized the first section. And initially when she told me that she wanted to edit the first section, the order, I was like, oh no, like, there goes my book. I don't trust editors. And then I gave it to her, and I saw what she did, and I was genuinely just jaw drop, beautiful, made sense, Like, I realized I was too immersed in the process and living the poems to have an objective perspective in terms of order and sequence. So shout out to her. And also for this first poem, there's an epigraph. For a while, with my cousins, my primos, there was a running joke that when I would start drinking, I would say, "Put on Árboles de la Barranca." So it opens with the lyrics to that song, and my mom is actually going to sing them. So if she could come up.
Well, everybody, my name is Maria, and I'm Jose's mother. He was telling me that he want to sing the part. And he said, "Mom, what do you think? I should sing this part or just read it?" And I said, "No, sing it, make it something different." He said, well, I don't know. Yeah, I never sing in front of the people, blah, blah, blah. And I said, "You sing it or I will sing it." But I was just joking, And then he said, "Oh, you do it?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Okay, you do it." I said, "No, I'm just kidding." "No, now you do it." And I said, "Okay, I'll do it." And then here I am. I don't know how it's going to come, but it's going to come. Árboles de la barranca, porque no han reverdecido. ¿Qué más? Es que no los han regado con agua del río florido. Me puse a amar a una mujer con la ilusión de amar. That's it. Se me fue por un poco.
Thank you. That was wonderful. On the way over here, I was telling her, rehearse it. So because she sings a different version, slightly different version, and she said, "No, I remember it. I don't need to practice. I'm a natural." So thank you. And it's from a poem called "Ballad of the West Coast Mexican American Chicanx." And so it has the epigraph, and it begins, "My Mexican friends think I'm too American. My American friends think I'm too Mexican. My Mexican-American friends are my road dogs. Mi gusto es escribir poesía toda la noche y toda la mañana. Mi gusto es escribir poesía toda la noche y toda la mañana. I don't like chili too hot. I don't like my chili too hot. I like it just right. I don't like my chili too hot. I like it just right. When I'm drinking on the weekend and they play Árboles de la Barranca, it doesn't matter who's singing it. I feel 100% Mexican. Those trumpets, damn. I put ketchup in my breakfast burrito. I put ketchup in my breakfast burrito. Con la ilusión de amar. So that was a fun one. I've never read that one in person, in public. So this next one, tonight in the refreshments, there's some Cerveza Bohemia. So I said I better read this one. And it was published in Huizache, and it's called Folk Song. And it refers to Las Cafeteras, which are a local band from East LA. A man in a Las Cafeteras shirt sang along to Ramon Ayala. It was late winter. He drank from his Cerveza Bohemia. The man in a Las Cafeteras shirt was a pocho, so his Spanish was somewhat broken, but when he sang along to Ramon Ayala, his voice was beautiful. The man listened to Ayala on YouTube. Originally, he started listening to Ayala from hanging out with his primos. The man wasn't even sure if Ayala had written the songs himself, or perhaps they were passed down from generation to generation. The man in a Las Cafeteras shirt felt like a regular macho when he sang, at once brave and stoic, at once romantic and chivalrous. The man in a Las Cafeteras shirt felt like he could suddenly ride a horse. In fact, when he visited Michoacan as a young man, he once rode a horse with the cerveza in hand. He wasn't really a macho, though, even though he was good at football in high school. For now, though, as you listen to Ramon Ayala, I skipped a line. Even though he was good at football in high school, he was somewhere in the middle between softy and macho. For now, though, as you listen to Ayala belt out another ranchera classic, the man in a Las Cafeteras shirt took a final sip of his Cerveza Bohemia and called it a night. And the first section is entirely linear verse poetry, autobiographical. So I know some people are probably used to my surrealism and prose poetry, but that's in the second, third, and fourth closing sections. So this one is called Buildings Roman of a Disadvantaged Brown Kid. And a Buildings Roman is like a coming-of-age story, usually a novel. You were more of an observer than a participant. You knew right from wrong, but didn't always do right. You had less than others did, but more natural gifts. Your parents sacrificed a lot for you to be a late bloomer. It didn't rain much in childhood, but that's not saying much. Sometimes you'd come home after sunset, but you were just playing ball. Some of your friends and siblings took fateful wrong turns. But you're still alive, and you've no fear of tomorrow. You're still alive, and statistics mean nothing to you. You're still alive with the flame in your hand. So I'm going to read the title piece now of the collection, Bad Mexican, Bad American. I like football, ketchup on my scrambled eggs. My biggest sin, perhaps, is I speak English to my parents. I'm a bad Mexican. Yet I like carne asada over barbecue, Latina women who speak Spanish in my ear. I root for Mexico in soccer. I'm a bad American, too. I like Sunday morning rain, winter holidays. I've found solace in the jaded moon. Not everything is this or that. I once spelled my name as Joey, was born in a racist nation. Not a troublemaker, just call it like I see it. My patriotism, red, white, and blue. I've got 2 tattoos on my chest, a Mexican flag, an American too. My children will likely speak less Spanish than me. Does that make you happy? I'm trying to do better. Leyendo poesía por la noche. Fusion is more than a cable channel in my barrio. It was said before me, it will be said after. How you treat folks is all that matters to the dying question. How do you want to be remembered? So now we're going to get into a little bit of the the prose poem, surrealism, and if you want to call it that. This first one is called, based on a true story, Meeting Octavio Paz on the Planet Jupiter. Obviously not a true story. I met Octavio Paz on the planet Jupiter last fall. He said he'd been living there since his death. Myself, I was on vacation with family. When I first saw Paz, I paused and asked myself, should I go up to him? He's won the Nobel. I did. I introduced myself as a comic book writer and illustrator and said it was a pleasure to meet him. We shook hands. I didn't want to talk about writing with him, so I asked his favorite soccer team. Pumas, he said. Later, he asked me the name of my most famous comic book so he could get a copy. The Magician, I told him. It was getting cold on Jupiter, so we called it a night after that. I never forgot his calmness, though, his class and elegance. Another prose poem here. This one is called The Stranger, and it was published in Yale Review Online, Poem of the Week, and it was one of the top poems read on Yale Review last year. Up there with Diane Seuss, who wrote the blurb, so I was kind of stoked about that. The Stranger. A man came up to me as I was walking home from the pharmacy. Are you Jose Hernandez Diaz? Yes, I said. Who's asking? Do you enjoy sipping tea before bedtime? Well, I do, but what is it to you? I asked. In the 9th grade, did you get cut from the basketball team? I did, in fact, get cut from the team. Do you sometimes wonder what life would have been like had you married Margot Cisneros? Maybe sometimes, yes, I said. Are you afraid of small talk and long walks in the city? I'm just a little introverted, I said. Does the night sky resemble a dragon of your dreams? Yes, thank you for asking, yes. Did you cry when, speaking of baseball again, Dodgers, Muncy hit that home run in the World Series? I think it was like the 18th inning or something. I did cry at that moment, proud of it. Were you born and raised back and forth from LA and Orange County? Story of my life, yes, I said. Does the night sky resemble a dragon of your dreams? Yes, thank you for asking. Yes. This next one is a prose poem, and it's called The Moon. You can't have a first book without a poem about the moon. That was the challenge of writing this, right? Like, I have the moon reference. How am I going to make this a hit? My first day on the moon was a pleasant experience. I had been a political prisoner for a few months back home in a country I won't name. I was against the government in general. I didn't have a specific economic or social policy gripe. I just didn't like their bland uniforms and puppet shows. The national anthem was a bit monotone and soulless. It lacked fine word choice or nuance, for that matter. So when I arrived on the moon as an exile, I welcomed the change. The prison was beginning to kill my spirit. On the moon, I was free to do as I pleased. I had to wear a spacesuit and bounce around like a kangaroo, but I got used to it. You get used to things as a man. You soldier on. The lack of food and water was initially problematic, but I began to realize that true nourishment came from the stars. On my last day on the moon, I didn't realize it was going to be my last day. It rained peacock feathers as cotton candy clouds overflowed the atmosphere. Dolphins flew freely in the sky like doves in Renaissance paintings. I sat near a pair of dragons and played the harmonica. I was on the moon, but it felt like a silver dream. A dream where you can't wake up. I never did wake up, actually. It was the most peaceful sleep of my life. First time I read in Beyond Baroque, I didn't bring water up here, and I was like dying. So, this is my last one. It's called The Skeleton and the Skeleton in the Pyramid. A skeleton with a sombrero sat on top of an Aztec pyramid. The sun was setting. He played a song on his old guitar. It was called The Jaguar Moon. At the end of the song, he took a bow for the small crowd that had gathered. The tourists clapped and tipped the skeleton plenty of pesos. The skeleton climbed down from the pyramid and bought a paleta de coco. It was his favorite flavor since childhood. The moon rose like a child's rainbow kite. Eventually, the skeleton finished the paleta and disappeared into the crowd of restless tourists. Thank you.
Thank you, Jose. One more time for Jose Hernandez Diaz, bad Mexican, bad American. We have copies in the bookstore. Please hang out. And LA, Jose, Rooja, thank you so much for tonight. Thanks, folks. Good night.